So just let me take a couple of minutes for introducing the speaker as well as our initiative for the next 3 minutes. Nice to have this series of talks because we felt that this kind of talks would be useful to all of us for maintaining good quality, as well as it's always good to revisit the fundamentals of concrete always, because we find that the same kind of problems are keep recurring. So we need to see how we can prevent such kind of problems by revisiting the fundamentals, as well as having a kind of discussion on such topics. So that is, we had the first series of first talk last Saturday by Engineer Shelly S. Fernandez, Managing Director of QCrete Readymix India Private Limited. And he spoke about the origin of RMC and the practical challenges last Saturday. And the talk is again available on our YouTube channel as well as on the uh, Facebook page. So you can always go in for that and see. In fact, we have today's speaker, Engineer Kaushika. We are again with the director of QCrete Readymix India Private Limited. So as all of you know, Engineer Kaushika is having vast experience in the area of concrete technology, and I am sure that he's the right person to talk about it because he has spoken in number of forums regarding the quality of concrete as well as on ready-mix concrete. To a brief about him, Engineer Kaushika, who is presently the director of QCrete Readymix India Private Limited. He has wide experience in areas relating to concrete technology and is involved in QA, QC, QMS, audits, training, RMCMA audits, etc. He was associated earlier with ICMAS Construction Chemicals Private Limited as its Director Marketing and Technical. He was associated with organizations like RMC Readymix India Limited as its General Manager Technical, Al Turkey Cement Products Oman, Master Builder Technologies in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Essence Supplements India Limited, Construction Chemicals and Fosrock Chemicals India Limited. He has completed his BE in Civil Engineering in PES College of Engineering Mandya from University of Mysore and postgraduate program equivalent to MBA, of course, in Business Management from Alliance Business School, Bangalore, and he has completed concrete technology course from City and Guilds, London. He has published articles on concrete-related topics in many national publications. You can find his articles by typing VR Kaushika in Google search. He has given about 150 lectures in various institutions, conferences in the last 10 years. ICI Karnataka chapter recognized and honored Engineer Kaushika for his contribution to concrete technology. He was a regular faculty in NCCBM, National Council of Cement and Building Materials, Hyderabad, for concrete-related topics. ESCI, Engineering Staff College of India, and many other engineering colleges. He has also taught in reputed colleges of Bangalore for MBA students and for MBA students in subjects like international marketing. So that's about Engineer Kaushika, who would be taking us through the three pillars of QA/QC of ready-mix concrete. And I'm sure that there would be a number of questions also on the aspects of ready-mix concrete, because we from Ramco Cement, we used to interact with various customers, various project customers, ranging from L&T to household customers, and we find that they're coping with a lot of challenges, whether it is site mixed concrete or ready mixed concrete. There are some queries which remains unaddressed, and some of them are aware of it, but very difficult for them to implement it at site. Say for example, the common problems, like you have common challenges like different sites, different applications. Say for example, you might be having precast concrete, you might be having site mixed concrete, you might be having ready mixed concrete, you might be having concreting for bridges, concreting for multi-story buildings, pumpable concrete. So many types of concrete are there, so it is very important that concrete be customized based on the application. So it is in this regard that QA/QC of ready-mix concrete, assumes importance. And we at Ramco Cements have also been manufacturing 12 different brands of cement for various applications from our various grinding units and integrated plants. Recently, as all of you know, we have also commissioned our grinding unit at Odisha, and we have also expanded our grinding unit in Kolaghat. So with that, I'm sure that many of the customers, many of those participants who have logged in from across the country, as of now, 95 participants have logged in. And let me invite Engineer VR Kaushika to take over for the session on three pillars of QA/QC for ready-mix concrete. Over to you, Engineer Kaushika, and thanks for joining us. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm thankful to Ramco Cements for inviting this lecture. And on behalf of Qcrete Readymix Concrete, I would like to share some of my experience, especially regarding the three pillars of QAQC aspects of Readymix Concrete. And I hope for the engineers practicing concrete technologies and users of cement, some of the experience that we share in the coming 60 minutes or 90 minutes will be of use. And in the afternoon, all of you have come, probably leaving your job. So I'm thankful to all of you. Now, the QAQC of construction as a whole is not new actually. It is there for centuries, maybe thousands of years ago. The first such usage of QAQC systems were found that in 100 AD, huge walls and domes were built of concrete, and it should be definitely with a lot of planning and a lot of QAQC management we can see. Then around 500 AD, Romans were manufacturing bricks for use in construction, and they included stamps and contracts to trace responsibility. So that is a part of QAQC. So going forward throughout history, the Romans utilized a building yard approach to organizing construction into trades that sequenced work from one to another. Example, first the wall, then plaster, and finally whitewash. So it was there for a long time, and now you can see these buildings structures standing for more than 2000 years in Machu Picchu, Peru, where you can see the stones which have been arranged in a curved fashion. The kind of stones that have been organized would not have been possible without a strong QAQC. Similarly, most baffling aspects we can see when we visit Egypt. Actually, if you go to Saqqara, which is about 70 kilometers from Cairo, you can see huge granite um, stones. These are boxes. God knows what they were planning to keep inside. We don't know. And it is highly polished, actually, highly polished. And you can see this in Saqqara, very close to Cairo. Again, you can see how at 90 degrees they have been, the walls have been carved and placed actually in Saqqara. And Djoser, Egypt. This is about, I can say, approximately more than about 5,500 years ago. First kind of stepped pyramids were found actually in this Djoser. So what we are talking about is quality aspects and QAQC systems. What we are adopting in construction as well as in concrete are not new. The ancestors high, high, high levels of QAQC knowledge and systems, which they were exhibiting and demonstrating in these kind of structures actually. And it is very, very, what do you call, we can say the structures that we are building with concrete, you can say in comparison, can be seen as infant steps actually. Huge buildings were built with a high amount of precision earlier, thousands of years ago. And what we are doing today, like Burj Khalifa and all, after so many years with so much of knowledge and so much of improvement in the materials, probably will not stand the test of time. So the QAQC levels, I can say, on one hand, we have introduced ourselves to modern materials. On the other hand, probably the durability has been lost actually. Now, quality management systems in a ready-mix company include sampling, testing of concrete, field control, plant control, education of users, education of people within the company, and concrete optimization of mixtures, and then promotional activities, specification review, what is given by the customer, evaluation continuously of the performance of concrete, and then if there is any failure, analysis of these things. All these things are included in quality management systems of concrete. We are coming to the topic of the day that, for example, if you refer IS 4926, we have three pillars what we are talking about with respect to ready-mix concrete. It has three different aspects. One is forward control, one is immediate control, and then another one is retrospective control. These are the three pillars of ready-mix concrete which we are talking about. The same controls you can also extend to any industry for that matter. It cannot it can be extended to any industry for that matter. Set of all activities.
I think there is some sound problem, I believe, audio problem. We are not able to hear. Yeah.
And
There is a
and then the last one, the retrospective control, that is set of all activities that we do after production. Means these activities cannot be done during the production or before production. These activities should be done after the production. So though these are called as the retrospective control. So I will go a little bit deeper into most of these aspects, the three pillars. The first one, as we said, is forward control. Forward control consists from the beginning control of purchased material. So generally when we get aggregates, sand, anything, we do visual checks, and then we take some samples, and we do some basic tests like grading, things like that. And we also expect some of these aggregate suppliers or sand suppliers to have some sort of certification, some sort of testing. We visit their quarries, we visit sand quarries, we visit the aggregate production units to check what kind of basic testing whether they are doing or not. And then we get these information from suppliers. Suppose the suppliers are supplying to other concrete plants or other construction sites, we get old data about specific gravity, grading, etc. from the aggregate suppliers. Most importantly, as the first step in the forward control, recognizing suppliers as partners. Okay, earlier the point is many of the vendors were not treated well, but for a organization or a ready-mix company to grow in a systematic way, in an organized way, in a proper way, we need to consider the vendors and respect the vendors and work with them. So materials, when it is received, most of the materials when they are received, it is weighed. Actually it is weighed. Incoming materials, all the materials are weighed, and of course the finished product also will be weighed sometimes, but most of the materials that come in are weighed. This is very important as a part of stock control, as a part of inward control. Then purchase basis, how we are going to purchase the materials, it is based on the availability. It is available, the material should be easily available. Product quality should be as per the corresponding codes, which are IS codes preferably. And then long-term relationships, how they are behaving with the particular company, how whether they are giving consistent supplies, timely deliveries. Whenever we ask quickly, sometimes we may have to ask a particular material, maybe aggregates or cement or whatever it is, how quick they respond. And material costs are most important, of course, in an era where all the ready-mix companies are competing. Material costs are of prime importance. freight costs, let us say a metal GGBS, for example, or a cement may be of very highest quality, but we cannot bring from a long distance actually. So it is better to bring the materials from the lowest distance. And of course, how they are responding to any complaint actually. For example, if we try to tell something about aggregate, for example, if we say to an aggregate vendor that the metals are flaky or something like that, whether he is coming back, whether he is doing some change in his in the way he produces the aggregates, whether he changes his sieves or method of production, something like that or not, and how they are supporting, that is all form the basis of purchase. Control of material is another aspect which is coming in forward control. Prevention of contamination and drainage of aggregates. Prevention of contamination is most important. For example, we see in some of the ready-mix companies that 20 mm, 12 mm and all gets mixed actually. So what happens in this case, if the aggregates 20 mm, 12 mm and sand gets mixed actually, so the batcher, the producer, at the batching point, he will be observing the computer and he will be thinking that the 20 mm is going. Suppose 20 mm is, let us say, 580 kgs. He will be thinking 580 kgs of 20 mm is going, but on the other hand, what is happening is 580 kg in 580 kg, maybe 100 kgs of sand is going because of intermixing. So intermixing is a very, you can say, in many companies it happens. The front end operators or loading operators don't take care of this one, and if it gets mixed, the mixed design that we give is one thing, and what happens is another thing. Means what the mix comes out and what is supplied to the customer is one thing, and what we have written as a mixed design is another thing. So prevention of contamination, falling of leaves or falling of debris, or sometimes you can see a lot of other things, unacceptable things falling onto the aggregates. All these things have to be avoided. And then drainage, especially in monsoon season, you have a lot of water. If it gets collected, then the moisture content goes up and down, and it becomes very difficult, and it makes the QC concrete technologist or QAQC job of an engineer very, very difficult to control the slump and other things. So drainage of aggregates is important. Then there should not be any confusion in which silo what is stored actually. So there should be proper storage and proper documentation of which silo what is stored actually. Generally it is you have a silo or two reserved for OPC cement, another one for maybe GGBS or fly ash. They have to be labeled properly, and then when somebody has named like this, the batcher or somebody from QC or in combination of both of them should ensure that the right material goes to the right silo. Traceability of materials from receipt to finished goods is the important aspect. For example, you have taken a particular cement, ready mix company, concrete producer should be able to understand and trace which cement has gone to which concrete, which customer, and which aggregates or which admixture has gone to which customer. So all the ingredients from the receipt to the delivery, until all these are processed and then finished goods are supplied, we should have at any point of time go back and trace the sources of these materials. That is the one of the important aspects of the forward control. Mix design and mix design modification. Mix design in a ready mix company, normally qualified engineers are there to do the mix design. They will have a lot of data. A company like you have for example, our company, we have data for about last 2-3 years, and many companies will have this data and history of this performance of these mixes. Trials are constantly done as a part of continued evaluation of the mixes and continuous improvement. And most importantly, understanding the customer requirements is important. We need to know what this concrete is being used for. For example, a concrete requirement comes, customer wants M30. Whether this M30 is going for floor, slab, whether it is going for an industrial floor, whether this concrete is going for a sloped roof, all these things we need to know. Whether sometimes a customer comes with 150 cubic meters or 200 cubic meters of concrete for a raft foundation or a small foundation. We need to know whether it is the foundation is very thick. If the foundation is very thick, we need to recommend use of SCM's blended concretes actually, as the heat of hydration will be more. So all these things need to be understood. For understanding that one, we need to understand what the customer wants before we submit the mix and before we offer customers anything, including, for example, a quotation or something like that. And after validating the mix design, once we do the trials, once we get the concrete mix trial done, we need to get this validated from the customer, and then we need to get this stamped from the customer, approved from the customer, and all these mix designs have to be arranged in a proper way, in a easy way, so that anybody, for example, one of the QA/QC engineer or concrete technology goes on leave, the other person should be able to access. Customer should also come see any of these things easily. So arrangement of these mixes also is important. Plant maintenance, okay, this is also an important aspect here. What happens is we need to maintain transfer and weighing equipment. There should be controlled flow of materials. Weighing scales has to be regularly calibrated. We have about every 3 months we need to calibrate as per IS code, IS 4926. Many of the companies, corporate companies, organized companies do monthly calibration of the weigh scales. And then we need to have a proper documentation of these things. And then mixture dispensers is very important, quickly and maybe in quicker frequency, maybe more frequency, maybe 15 days, once in 15 days, once in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we need to check the calibration of admixture dispensers, because if the admixture goes more or less, then it will be a problem for the concrete. Plant mixers and truck mixers, blade condition has to be checked. Mixer power, whether the power consumption is more, something has happened. Maintenance has to be checked actually. Whether there is a build-up inside the concrete truck, all these things need to be checked actually. For example, sometimes if the trucks are not maintained well, if there are old concrete accumulated inside, and then sometimes if some of the old concrete gets mixed with the new concrete, the customer will have a problem with the concrete. So all these things need to be looked into, and constantly the operations department in a ready mix company or any concrete producer should be checking the maintenance as per the scheduled frequencies. These are some of the points that we need to do before production, and in this we also deal a lot with different kinds of materials, and all these materials have to qualify as per IS codes. If there is, for example, we are trying to introduce a new product, if there is any other code, whether a European code or a ASTM code is there, that can be used. And we should also have, if you are using any product in the ingredient in the concrete, which is not conforming to IS, we need to have a lot of data, and should be approved by corresponding structural engineer or any of the consultants before we make use in concrete actually. Now, moving on to the second pillar, which is the immediate control. Immediate control is, as we discussed earlier, set of all activities that we do at the point of production, at the time of production. So the most important point that we do at the point of production is proper control of slump. Proper control of slump is indirectly proper control of water cement ratio, and this can be achieved by properly feeding to the software or the computer, batching computer, moisture on 20 mm, 12 mm and sand, and moisture is fed at least 2 to 3 times in monsoon on rainy day. On dry days, like in hot summer, when we are very sure that there is no moisture, maybe the moisture can be fed only one time when we are sure that there is no changes, big changes in the moisture content. But otherwise, we need to have a very strict control on 12 mm, 10 mm, and sand moisture and it has to be very carefully done, especially if we are doing high grade concretes above M40. We have seen in the past throughout in the last 20 years or last 15, 20 years, I have seen personally in big projects also there is absolutely lack of moisture control. So in such cases, what happens is there will be huge variations in the slump as well as the strength. Both the fresh and the hardened properties will vary significantly, even if we keep all other things constant, which many times is not possible. The fresh and hardened properties vary significantly due to uncontrolled moisture, which creeps in many of the mixes. So meter which shows approximately what is the slump, whether the mix is stiff, whether the mix is like a kind of fluid, things like that, which will be known to a production officer. And corrections related to moisture also has to be recorded, and the QAQC people also have proper recording documentation done on a daily basis on moisture correction that happens. When we are talking about product control, we have sampling done at plant randomly. Some of the ready mix companies, like our company, we do check every truck when before sending. Means as soon as the production takes place, we take some sample and check the sample mostly in most of the trucks, and then measuring and recording this lump is important. Measuring the temperature at plant, and then we check the slump retention. For example, the concrete truck has to travel for let us say 1.5 hours to deliver the concrete. So we take the sample at the batching plant, keep it for 1.5 hours, and observe how it behaves after 1.5 hours, especially with respect to the fresh properties. And cubes sometimes we take out of this concrete, which is kept for observation of slump. So these are the checks that we do as a part of product control. So during the fresh state, we also check yield, which is in other words checking of plastic density of concrete, and this plastic density of concrete is checked and compared with the theoretical density. Also trucks, we take the initial truck payment and then final truck payment with and without concrete, and then we compare the concrete weight uh, with the theoretical density, just to check whether the plastic density and yield that we are doing is right. So these are part of the initial immediate control. Then comes the retrospective control. Retrospective control is, as we discussed earlier, set of all activities that we do after production. After production, here it comprises of strength monitoring at site, sampling at site, remixing of casting as per standards, protecting cubes in state, curing at right temperature, crushing cubes, and recording. These are set of activities that we do, and you can see some of these things that we do on site. For a SCC concrete, you can see a very cohesive mix, which is exhibited here. No bleeding. So at site, the concrete has to be, if we are talking about SCC concrete, it has to be bleeding free. It has to be very cohesive and homogeneous mix. And this is a U box test that we do for SCC. L box which we do for SCC concrete. A V funnel, for example, we place the concrete, we put the concrete here in this V funnel, and it has to be collected, and the time for falling and filling into this bucket, which is about it should be about 6 to 12 seconds. So these are some of the tests that we do on SCC as a retrospective control. Fundamentally, most important aspect, many companies and many individuals, concrete technologists and engineers don't care about is the way sampling and testing is done. It is, I can say, some of the times it is very unfortunate that this is one of the most neglected areas in the QAQC of concrete and construction. Is, I can say, the one of the pillars, the I can say the retrospective control pillar is many times shaken because of negligence or ignorance or non-implementation of some basic procedures which we are talking about now. Actually, one of the things is that the concrete has to be sampled in a very specific and systematic way, as discussed and exhibited in a standard. For example, IS 4926 very clearly says that when the truck reaches the site, the truck has to be mixed with high speed turning of the drum, and then you have to leave about 0.3 cubic meters onto the concrete has to be left onto the pump, and then after leaving 0.3 meter cube onto the pump, next then you have to take the concrete sample for slump and casting cubes. This is a very important step because when you are taking a sample, you are taking sample of about 50-60 kgs, which will represent ultimately about 4-5 cubes or 6 cubes at the most, and you are taking the sample from a truck which contains about 6 or 7 cubic meters, which is about 15 tons of concrete will be there. By taking a sample in a very unstandard way, in a irregular way, as per the whims and fancies of somebody, will definitely affect the strength. The strength will be totally different from what it should have been if we don't do the sampling properly. This is what we are talking about is IS code. There are other codes which will clearly properly speak about the method of sampling. BS 1881 is a very well researched document where they talk about you leave the first 1 cubic meter of concrete to go down the chute into the pump or onto the structure, and then you take the concrete sample, running the scoop at right angles to the flow of concrete in several scoops from first at regular intervals. Means you have to leave the first part, you have to you should not take the concrete sample from the last part. In between, in regular intervals, you can take the sample. That is how the sampling is done, has to be done as far as the BS 1881 is concerned. There is also other method which is something closer to IS method, what we discussed earlier. This is also called as spot sampling, where they talk about leaving about 0.3 cubic meters of concrete from the truck onto the pump or onto the element, and then you start taking the sample. And they specifically say that the alternative method or the spot sampling, when we do, it is only for checking the slump and not for casting the cubes. So if we are having a composite sample, means if we want to do a sample, composite sample we are taking for both slump and strength, we have to go and use this first method, which is standard method of doing the sampling. Actually, this is the only way that we have to do. Actually, even the ASTM C94 is the other method established in America, Canada, etc. They talk about first you leave 10% of the concrete, last 10% also you should leave, in between you have to take the concrete. So this is a very important aspect in the retrospective quality control. Then what do you do if we are talking about when the slump is less? What do you do if the slump is less? If the slump is less, as per ACI 212.4 R, and even it is discussed in IS 4926, you can have a small addition of admixture on site by trained technicians. And this is generally about, generally we add about zero point 0.1 to 0.2 or 0.3% maximum by weight of cement or cementitious system. And generally it will be about half a liter or 1 liter of admixture diluted in about 5 liters of water, because if you don't dilute the concrete, the mixture cannot be spread uniformly in the entire body of concrete. So that is why we say you will take a little amount of admixture, about half a liter or 1 liter, and then you dilute in about 5 to 10 liters, and then mix it thoroughly before you unload to boost the slump. So this is a very well accepted method if the slump is less. If the slump is more, what do you do as a one of the important steps in terms of retrospective control? Let us say we take the concrete and we find that the slump is more. Why this happens? The slump can be because of more water. It could have come because of a wrong moisture content given in the patching plant. That means it will lead to higher water cement ratio. Maybe coarser metals, aggregates which have been earlier during the mix design was taken with a certain gradation. They have become coarser. Sand has become coarser. Chemical admixture might have gone more. Maybe a wrong batching. Cement to cement, some variations will take place actually. It is said that brand to brand, plant to plant variations will occur. That is a different matter. We will not discuss now here. So sometimes if we are changing from one brand to another brand, the behavior of concrete will be different both in fresh and hardened state. So we need to take care of that one. Especially a particular brand can give more slump retention, another brand can give lesser slump retention. So another point which we need to discuss is that, let us say the mix design is done for 3 hours slump retention. So somebody wants the concrete to have a 150 slump after 3 hours. For whatever reason, he has assumed and he has told the ready mix company to give a mix which is going to give 150 slump after 3 hours. The truck reaches the site in 1 hour. So definitely the slump will be out of spec at that time, and the slump will be very high at that time if the truck reaches at a very early time than anticipated. So these things can happen. So if this pump is more, we need to check with the RMC and whether we have to accept this or not. And without certification from the RMC, we should not accept a very high slump. So what is the high slump, that we will discuss later. So we need to check, and maybe we have to take this slump 2-3 times actually before we are. Making of cubes is also has to be done systematically. There is a elaborate method described in IS 1199, and then we have standard procedure explained in 516 1959, how they talk about what they talk about making of cubes. We can have 35 strokes, 3 layers, and many times we neglect this one. Untrained technicians, untrained personnel will make different ways of doing this casting of cubes. And if the compaction is not good, if the casting is improper, and if the uh, cubes which are cast are not protected immediately before we transfer it to the main lab, before we transfer it to a curing facility, then it will be a problem. Yield check we have already discussed as part of a retrospective control. You can take this particular thing as you can say it falls in both immediate as well as retrospective control. We can say that Generally, it is done as a part of retrospective control, as it is required to check how many meter cube of concrete we have supplied, and whether we are supplying the exact meter cube of concrete ordered, and whether the theoretical density and plastic density are matching, and whether we have batched right. So to check that, yield test is done, and yield test is properly described, as we earlier we know IS 1199 speaks about that one. And it is at least every time, every day, at least once in a day, we need to take this yield check actually, and match with the weight of the concrete that we have batched in the truck. And then we also we have to check how much it is batched in the as per the batch record. So in the batch record, the theoretical recipe and the total batched material should match to each other. And then we have to also check what is the weight of the concrete in the truck divided by the volume, say 6 meter cube or 7 meter cube, and all this should match with the plastic density, and that should match with the theoretical density. All this should be matched to check the yield. And then we have the different aspects, how different um aspects of sample making and method of sampling affect the cube strength, which is one of the most important aspects of retrospective quality control. Here, as we discussed earlier, we need to take care of whether it is a representative sample has been taken as per the BSA 1881 preferably, or as per IS we need to do. There is no way we can dilute that particular standard. We cannot do in our way, in our own way. Then remixing, once we take the sample, it has to be mixed properly and thoroughly. We need to have standard cube molds. Many people will talk about, no, we are using for 20 years, we are doing this for 15 years, we know, our technicians know, that is all okay. But we need to check whether the, when we are talking about cube molds, whether they are really 150 mm by 150 mm by 150 mm. Ready-mix companies like us, we have standard procedures where we check the dimensions regularly, and if there is any deviation, if a cube mold is not conforming to this, we remove the such a cube mold from our laboratory. So this is a regular check that we do: cube molds, dimension, maintenance of dimensions of cube molds. And we also many times, many companies and many individuals, uh, technicians neglect, they don't apply oil properly. It will affect the finishing. Not only it will affect finishing, if they use a wrong oil, sometime bad oil, waste oil, if this enters into the body of concrete, sometimes it may interfere with the setting time and strength of concrete. So we need to use proper mold oil, and proper mold oil has to be applied uh, throughout the surface of the cube mold before we use. Full compaction is as per to be done as per IS, and it clearly says, IS clearly says, for if it is 100 mm cube molds, if it is 2 layers 25 strokes. If it is 150 mm cube molds, it is 3 layers of 35 strokes minimum each. And then if the compaction is poor, if the compaction is not done properly, then each 1% of uncompacted concrete will give rise to 5 to 6% drop in strength. So this is a point which we need to remember actually. So if the technicians are untrained, if they are tired, or if they are for some reason or the other don't want to do their job properly, they may do a lesser compaction or incomplete compaction, which can lead to different strengths. Maintaining moist overnight, cubes should not be kept in the direct sunlight. It will lead to quick evaporation of moisture from the concrete, and it may lead to loss of strength. Curing cubes under standard condition, very very important. Observation of cube faults is important. Accurate measurement of dimensions of weight. accurate measurement of density and strength is also important. J.D. Dever and R. Anderson, these two people have done a lot of work across Europe and other continents earlier, about 30-40 years ago, and they took thousands of samples from ready-mix companies, and they made this observation: how different aspects of the sampling and cube making and curing affect the strength of cube or cube strength. Cube strength here is the potential strength of the concrete that we are talking about. So the true average cube strength, if we consider 100%, there will be a lot of deviations because of different errors or mistakes that we do. For example, if we don't do sampling properly, it may have a negative or positive impact, which we can see here. And then if remixing is not done, somebody may say, no, what, this is a very, very simple thing. We are mixing for a long time. We are doing, these technicians are doing for a long time. But if it does not do remixing of sample properly, it may have a negative impact. It may be as good as 15% lesser. Distorted cube mold. If the cube molds are not 150 mm, 150 mm, it may affect negatively. Incomplete compaction, a very huge impact, minus 20%. Curing, temperature outside permitted range, sometimes it became a negative or it can be positive. But lack of continuous moist curing, if it is not cured properly, intermittent curing, if we go to projects, many projects we see sometimes that the curing is done in the morning, curing is done in the afternoon, curing is done in the evening, whenever the labor are free, whenever the person assigned who is assigned for the job of curing has some time, he will go on curing actually. So this kind of intermittent curing, lack of continuous moist curing, you can see here, can take down the cube strength to 35%. We have seen in many projects, since they are in a hurry to finish the project quickly, since they have a lot of other jobs, they don't understand the importance of curing. We can see many of the concrete projects, they will not see properly monitor, they will not monitor the curing after 3 days. IS very clearly says for OPC mixes, you need to cure the structures on site up to 10 days minimum. And then for blended concretes, when the concretes have SCMs like fly ash or GGBS, you need to cure the concrete for up to 14 days. But these are seldom done, they are not done. And then you are bound to have lower strengths. You are going to have lower strengths, especially in high temperature areas, let us say Chennai, Hyderabad, even sometimes in the hot summer situations in Bangalore. If lack of curing happens, evaporation rates will be higher. There will not be sufficient water inside the body of concrete, and then there will be a lot of unhydrated cement particles in the body of concrete because of lack of moisture available in the body of concrete, and hence it will lead to significant losses of strength. Then after curing, if the machine operator doesn't know how to keep in the center of the machine and crush it properly, then it will lead to negative impact, big negative impact. Faulty testing machine, uncalibrated testing machine, all will lead to negative impact. All will have a negative impact on the tube strength. We many times hear the strengths are varying, this kind of question actually. The answer is that if we don't do all these aspects, sampling, remixing, if your cube molds are not all right, compaction is not all done all right, curing temperature, many of the sites we take care of everything. For example, if you are testing of steel or testing of any other material, it is all done in third-party laboratory under proper supervision. But whenever we talk about the testing of cubes. Many times it is done in old, faulty, uncalibrated machines, and curing is neglected. Curing they don't do at 27 plus or minus 2 degrees as specified in Indian standard. So what happens if it is the curing is not done properly? You will not have a proper strength. For example, in winter, let us say in Bangalore, the temperature in uh, can go down to 12 degrees or 18 degrees in the nights. And in summer, the temperature, for example, in Hyderabad or Chennai can go as good as 40, 42 degrees. So if this kind of temperatures are there, either the hydration will be quicker or slower, and which will lead to different strengths actually. The desired and potential strength, what it is required to achieve, we will not be able to reach, because it is said very clearly that scientists have proved long back that the best curing temperatures are between 22 to 30 degrees. If the temperatures are very high, the strengths are affected, especially at elevated temperatures. You may get a very quick 7-day strength. 7-day strengths will be almost 90, 95%, maybe 100% of the strength which it should achieve uh, will be achieved in 7 days or 8 days, and later on there will not be big jump, especially if you're talking about OPC mixes. So hence we need to cure in ideal temperature. We need to keep the structure cooler. We need to do the ponding on structures, uh, at least as IS describes. You need to cure the especially if you are blending with fly ash or GGBS. 14 days is must. I know many times it is difficult in big projects, but we need to follow that one actually. As far as the lab curing is concerned, we need to cure in standard condition 27 plus or minus 2 degrees. So the producer has the responsibility to provide the following information: nature and source of each constituents, source of supply of cement, the customer can ask, proportions, mix design, customer can ask, and it has to be given. It has to be ratified, I mean to say validated by the customer. Then admixture, what kind of admixture, all these things need to be given to customer. um, and the invoice or the DC or the challenge that comes along with the truck should be as per IS 4926 with all the details which is given in 4926 Annexure G. And as a customer to check whether all the three pillars of QAQC which we talked about is happening or not, we can have a quick check. A ready mix company can be audited or can be checked by the customer, where whether all the materials are selected as per IS 456 materials, or testing is done as per the frequency given in IS 4926, and as far as the company quality manual, steps at batching plant to prevent contamination, whether it is there or not, or intermixing is happening, calibration of batching plant is happening as per the frequency, maintenance of batching plant is happening as per schedules, calibration of lab equipment, for example CTM every 6 months, and other equipment, a lot of other equipments are there. All these things, whether it is done yearly, and whether checks are happening at batching plant, slump, moisture correction, everything. And then site, we have some correction, some checks to be done on site. What are the checks means? Whether the concrete reaches the site, the concrete has to be consumed within 2 hours or 3 hours. All these things need to be checked on site, and we need to have a complete understanding whether the producer is doing forward intermediate retrospective controls. All these things have to be checked by customer. And as a part of retrospective control, ready mix producer will also do mean standard deviation, coefficient of variation. All these things are done in a batching plant as a part of statistical study, as a part of retrospective control. And the standard deviation, mean, and all is checked on a monthly basis for different mixes. Again, going forward, as far as the acceptance criteria is concerned, then we have the acceptance criteria as given in IS 456. We need to check whether we are doing as per this or not. Again, we have two kinds of mixes, design mixes, where the mix design is done as per IS 10262. A concrete producer will have a range of mixes which are obtained by trials, also can be based on previous data, but this has to be corresponding to the the guidelines as given in 10262. And then we need to also evaluate setting characteristic, material compatibility, evaluation, workability, placeability, strength, uniformity, and durability. And this is a continuous process, and it is also based on the retrospective control that we do. Every time we get the strengths and all, every month we analyze whether the mean is okay, standard deviation is okay, everything is going right in the right direction, or if any corrections have to be done as is there. One customer comes, he says, I want 350 kg OPC and I want this much sand, this much aggregate, and this much water in this. This is like just a like a actually. So here what you have to mix like this, and the responsibility of a ready mix company is just to mix what the customer has asked and demonstrate to the customer at any point of time, give evidence to the customer at any point of time that he has mixed all these materials as per the standards, as per agreed terms. Stock control of materials is also part of retrospective control. Whatever has come, let us say we have done 1000 cubic meters of concrete for a customer. Each mix is having about 400 kgs of some cement. So inward and outward need to be need to be tallied actually. So whether the cement has gone right or wrong, we need to check. This is a part of retrospective control, stock control of materials. Complaints and feedback. We have a proper method of documenting and reviewing and resolving complaints and feedback from the customers. And it can be workability related, it can be strength related, it can be service related, like whether the pump and any concrete has reached in time, delivered in time, or any other complaints. We have a proper procedure of uh, reviewing and resolving the complaints. This is part of retrospective control. And in a ready mix company, we should also take further steps to identify customers, both internal and external customers. Means we have internal customers like other department people who are also looking into the concrete, who are also giving feedback on different aspects of concrete, both on the fresh state and hardened states, that we need to be monitoring actually. It is very important to promptly act on the even smallest of the complaints. Delays or inaction may result in further customer dissatisfaction. Ultimately, the three pillars what we discussed are designed to give the maximum customer satisfaction. So any small complaint, if it is not taken properly in the right spirit and not attended in time, can lead to customer dissatisfaction. And this is not the objective of the three pillars of QAQC which we are talking about. Most importantly, as the part of three pillars of QAQC of ready-mix concrete, the three pillars can be strong and can give ultimate customer satisfaction, provided the different levels of people in the company, including the top management to the you can say the lowest level of employee in the ready-mix company, are trained continuously and their competencies are mapped, and any gaps in their competency or weaknesses in their competencies are identified, and continuous evaluation and enhancement of the abilities have to take place, which will lead to more and more customer satisfaction. This is also an extended, you can say, extended third pillar, that is retrospective control. Quality Council of India has taken cognizance of this, or they have taken consideration of all this, especially based on the recommendations given in IS 4926, and they have made a comprehensive checklist to audit a ready-mix concrete plant, whether they are capable of producing to give a concrete to the level of customer satisfaction. So QCA certificate is highly valued by specifiers all over India. This is, you can say, as a stamp of class from given by the QCA. So the three pillars which we talked about are preventative. The primary intent of all quality programs is to get ahead of and avoid quality issues, ultimately by doing work right at the first time. We eliminate rework, avoid loss of productivity of all having to resolve issues, and avoiding generation of waste. Then predictive, and most importantly, continuous measurable improvement should be there. QAQC systems are not stagnant. The three pillars are rigidly built to support the product higher final product quality, but they are dynamic. They should be in continuous improvement, and review should take place. A key component of continuous improvement is the creation of use of knowledge to continually improve what and how things are done, and it should be collaborative efforts. Collaborative efforts. Quality is not a result of an individual, or it is not a game of an individual. It is like cricket or any other game where all the members of the team are involved. All the members have a bearing on the final product. Like for example, in a ready-mix company, you can supply the best concrete, and then it can be spoiled at the end. For example, if the concrete, when it reaches the site, on-site engineer or somebody supervisor, somebody at the receiving end, just says you add water and pump the concrete. So that becomes a dilution in quality. So it is not it is not a work of a one person actually. It is collaborative at all levels, including some of the important members of the customer engineers and customer supervisors. And each individual should be made strong in a QAQC system. Actually, in the three pillars of ready-mix concrete that we are talking about, within the company and at the outside the company, when we are transporting the concrete, after transporting the concrete, something happens. At the time of placing, something can happen. Anything can happen wrong. Anything can go wrong if the user, or at any point of time, any of the stakeholders does any mistake actually. So each individual is important. We need to train each individual. As part of three pillars, we are talking about the other aspect, that is 5 M's: men, materials, methods, machinery, money. Men should be trained well. Materials should be selected as per IS codes or any other code with proper data, and method should be properly defined. Machinery should be well maintained, and of course we cannot do all these activities without money. And for the three pillars what we are talking about, if we need to have a successful implementation of the three pillars of ready-mix concrete, what we are talking about, there should be enough planning, skill, schedule, resources, alignment, behavior, management commitment. Most important, management commitment. We can have a very big quality manual. We have seen in some of the big companies, we have big manuals, quality manual will be there. Okay, but top people, whether they are really committed to the quality or not is the question actually. And then resources, let us say in a ready mix company, we have 5 trucks which can do, let us say in a day, about 150 cubic meters in a nearby site. So we cannot take a job of 300 cubic meters with the 5 trucks. So resources, proper utilization of resources, planning, scheduling, all part of the 3 pillars which we are talking about. So the 3 pillars again, I mention again the forward control, immediate control, retrospective control is set of all these activities which will lead to ultimate customer satisfaction in the mix company. As I said earlier, the 3 pillars of QAQC systems of ready mix concrete can also be used or extended to any other industry, irrespective of what somebody is manufacturing. Thank you. Thank you. I think I have covered the subject to the best of my knowledge and in the limited time available. And I would like to thank once again all the audience in the middle of the day. You have all come to hear uh, from me on a Saturday. Thank you very much. And I thank the management of Ramco Cements, especially thanks to Anil Kumar Pillai and his juniors staff. And I'm also thankful to my MD, Shelly Fernandez, who encourages me to attend to these kind of webinars and share my experience. Thank you all. Any questions are there? You can ask.
Yeah, thank you so much, Engineer Kaushika. You're able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah. It was a good presentation. In fact, you had covered all the aspects of quality control in RMC. I'm sure that it would be useful. A couple of questions have come. Can we take it up?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sir, one question is that how will you ensure the quality of fly ash used in making ready-mix concrete? They say that MTCs are available for cement for each week, whereas no such test reports are available for fly ash.
Yes.
Are there any tests being conducted for fly ash, except fineness, of course? No?
Yes.
That is one question which has been asked.
Like a storyteller, we take some time. I take some time, and I request the questioner to have some patience when I'm talking about this answer particularly. Now, long back in 1999 to 2000, actually, when we started using fly ash in my previous company, okay, then the point is that no fly ash producer in India, except a very limited set of people actually, gives any certificate or MTC to a ready-mix company or any company for that matter. What happens is whatever is produced as a waste in a thermal power plant, he comes and he brings it and gives it to us actually. He has no control and we have no control on that quality. The only thing that we can do, that we do regularly in a ready-mix company is, as soon as the fly ash comes into our plant, we check the moisture. Moisture should not be more than 1.5%. And then we check the fineness on 45 micron sieve. This is well defined in IS 3812. IS very clearly says if the fineness is more than 34%, retention is more than 34% on 45 microns, we cannot use that fly ash for structural concrete. So when the truck arrives, we can do this test actually on each bulker, each fly ash before receiving. This is a very quick test we can do, and a very, very important test, because it is said that uh, 10 to 30 microns or 40 microns maximum are the reactive materials. They are the only particles which are reactive. If the particles are coarser, they sit in the body of concrete like dummy materials without reacting. So 45 microns can test is mandatory. We can do that actually. And then we can also just take some amount of fly ash and put it into water. If a lot of black particles are there, carbon particles are there, it indicates that a lot of these impurities are there which may affect the workability and strength. So these quick tests are done. In addition to that one, we can do a loose bulk density and compact bulk density of this of each truck of fly ash. We can also store this and do, if we have time, quick slump retention test and slump test for quick assessment of fresh properties. And most of the ready mix companies now we have this ACG test instrument. We can get the strength in 28 day strength, approximately estimated strengths in about 24 hours. So these quick tests can be done actually. So other than this, we can send this sample to outside testing, but of course the outside test will reveal, and it will come only after 1 month or 1.5 months actually. But generally, what we have observed is most of the fly ash supplies that we get across South India from different plants, uh, which are class F fly ash, means class F fly ash, which says that the CaO content is lesser than 10%, are mostly acceptable and mostly usable, manageable up to 25-30 grade of concrete actually. So it is not a problem. Most of the fly ash what we get from most of the thermal power plants across India are okay, except where we get class C fly ash, it will be a question mark. But quality of most of these fly ashes are easily acceptable. But we need to be very careful with regard to the fineness, because if coarser particles are there, you are having fly ash, and then loose bulk density and compacted bulk density tests. And if we have time, we can also do an assessment of fresh and hardened properties by quick slump retention test and a CT test. I hope I have answered, sir.
Yes, sir. Your answer was complete. I think that's a good tip that you have given. Another question is regarding curing. In fact, that is one of the most important challenges that most of the people would be facing as far as curing is concerned. The questions asked is that whether temperature influences curing, and is there any measure of the completeness or adequacy of curing?
Temperature definitely affects the means the strength gain. If the temperature is more, for example, if you are using a 53 grade OPC cement, let us say, so the most of the strength will be gained in 7 to 10 days itself actually. So let us say we are making a concrete of M30 in hot temperatures. Let us say we are doing in Chennai, and if this water temperature, curing water, we have dipped the cubes, we have kept the cubes inside the curing water, and the temperature, curing water temperature has gone to, let us say, 38 degrees on a hot summer day. So here what happens is the most of the strength is gained in 7 to 10 days, and it may be there may be a very nominal jump between 7 days to 28 days. In fact, sometimes if the costing of the cubes are lesser, is improper, there are cases where 7 day strengths are either equal or sometimes in a very abnormal situations. It has shown the 28 day strengths are 1 or 2 MPa lesser in 28 day strength. Means simply that is because of the variations that occur due to improper compaction. But as far as the hydration process is concerned, quick hydrations occur when at elevated temperatures. So we need to have a very proper control on the curing temperature as defined in IS code. And in elevated temperatures, if we are not constantly curing and keeping the structure in a cooler temperature, then definitely the strengths will be affected. Higher the temperature, the ultimate strengths will be affected actually. The blended concretes also, the blended concretes, the rate of hydration is directly related to the temperatures prevailing at the time of curing. If the temperatures are higher, the strengths which should come in 28 days or 30 days or 40 days will come in say 15 days or 16 days, and later age strengths will be stunted actually. So there is a direct relation between the temperature and the strength gain. So if we want to have proper designed strength, means if the potential strength that we whatever the potential strength we need to get out of a particular design mix concrete, then we need to cure at lower temperatures as defined in the national code. For example, British code says 22 degrees you have to cure. Even the ASTM code says approximately 20 plus or minus 2 degrees like this, and IS says you have to cure at 27 plus or minus 2 degrees. In sight, it will be difficult, I understand very clearly, but we need to understand that if we are compromising and if we are not keeping the structures cool, if we are not curing properly for longer time, then your strengths will not be as expected. You may, these cubes may pass the required strengths actually, but you are not reaching the potential strength. That is the effect of temperature on curing. Is it okay, sir?
Yeah, thank you so much. You covered the aspects of curing which is required, because although all of us know that curing is very important, but it is the most neglected aspect in most of some of the sites. So that is one thing. And second thing is regarding the cubes. Actually, you were talking about the cube sampling. So one question which has been asked is, does the compressive strength of cubes when tested on wet samples, does it give less strength than the same test conducted on dry sample?
See, the IS has a very simple, clear answer actually. The strength of cubes have to be tested on SSD, means there should not be moist surface when you are testing the cubes actually, and there will not be huge significant difference if you have some amount of moisture when you are testing actually. It doesn't make a big difference at all, but as per the standard there should not be huge amount of moisture when you are testing. So generally what the ready mix companies or any concrete producer will do, or any construction site you can see, they will say they will take out the tank, and by the time they test it will be maybe 1 hour or 2 hours. So generally the concrete cubes will be you can say on the drier side. So simple, in simple way what we can say is of course on a wet sample it may have a small deviation but not huge actually, but we need to do as per standard. It has to be done after the tube becomes slightly drier actually, means it should be like a SSD condition, means it should not be too moist when you are testing actually. Yeah, okay sir.
Yes, that is okay.
Yeah.
In fact, there is one more this thing, like last one more question. Does curing affect any other prop other than the compressive strength? Suppose if we are doing prolonged curing, does
Yeah.
it have an influence on any other property of concrete other than the compressive strength?
uh,
Maybe
curing
beneficial effect or something, yeah.
curing, as the definition goes, curing is a method of keeping sufficient water inside the body of concrete. So longer the time, longer the duration that we do curing, that means to say we are giving sufficient amount of keeping sufficient amount of water inside the body of concrete. We are allowing the cement particles or cementitious particles to undergo proper hydration. So more the curing, all the durability properties, all the properties of durability will be enhanced actually. So many of the times I have seen long back, many of the sites we have seen concrete, means project managers who are highly experienced or preferring to do. In fact, I don't want to name at this stage in Chennai. In 2002, 2003, we were doing concrete, and at high temperatures, the project manager was insisting that he will do the curing for 28 days, irrespective of whatever happens, irrespective of the problems that a construction team faces. He wanted to do for 28 days. So more the curing, better will be the ultimate strength of concrete, and it will not have it will have a positive effect on the uh, ultimate durability and other properties of concrete, engineering properties of concrete. So longer we do the curing, better for the concrete, because the hydration process will improve, microstructure will improve, and the hydration process will go in a very systematic, proper way, and hence the properties of concrete will enhance in all possible ways.
Thank you. In fact, you have emphasized the importance of curing on concrete. That was I think that's all. We have this many questions. That was a wonderful talk by you. Thank you so much for joining. And in fact, this was the second of the series that we are having. The second series of second talk. And no other questions. So the third talk would be on November 7th, again by Engineer Shelly Fernandez on site mix versus ready mix concrete. Thank you so much for all the participants who have joined us in spite of the busy schedule. And thanks, Engineer Kaushika, for deep insight into the aspect of quality control on RMC. Thank you so much. So we sign off from the event.